Guys, we're so lucky that Maddie can speak and hear right now because when we first logged on, she was talking up a storm. I could tell it wasn't going through the microphone, but she couldn't hear me and I could hear her though. And she's just like, "Oh, so your settings are wrong."
And turns
And that
out
I was wrong.
she could see my settings and see that my speakers were set up to go through my microphone, which obviously doesn't make any sense. And so I'm sitting here thinking she's wrong. Like, well, Lexi, your settings are obviously wrong.
She was so confident. Finally, I called her and I was like, dude, I can see that you're wrong and you think I'm wrong.
Which, like, if you know me, you know that I'm probably wrong in the technological field. I was like, just waiting for her to fix her problem. I used to be pretty technologically at least up to date in my life. And then once I hit like 24, something happened, like my brain stopped working.
Well, I think you're concentrating on other things in life, right? Like you've lost the time to keep up with technology, but you're doing other things that like take priority to keeping up with technology.
What a positive spin.
I know. I'm so good at this.
Well, that's why we have this podcast. It's perfect.
Yeah. With that, welcome to today's show. We're very excited. We have a guest today.
We do. And speaking of positivity and authenticity, we have Emily Martens coming. She's going to be joining us in just a couple minutes. And she is from Dubuque, Iowa. She is an influencer, hairstylist, and dog mom. And her content is all about living in the Midwest, but also sharing her love for fashion, beauty, self-love, and authenticity. Did I get all of that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's more. She can touch on that. But yeah, we did want to give a heads up that part of our conversation with Emily today, we'll be discussing a few sensitive topics, which includes grief and personal loss. So we will warn you before that part of the discussion starts, but just wanted to give a heads up. All right. Okay. So before Emily joins, Maddie, why are you mad this week?
Okay, you always ask me first, and it's funny because I come driving home from work to hop on this around 5:30. And I try to think of something, and I really struggle sometimes. And so I'm really struggling today, as you can tell. But the most recent thing is I'm wearing a Wait You're Mad hat right now. And I'm mad about not being able to figure out which colors we should choose because I don't know if you just saw, we just posted on our story, like both colors, and people were voting on it. And a lot, like literally 95% of people want the brown. So I just already ordered like half blue, half brown. And so I'm like, shit, should I have done like all brown?
No, I think this is good though, because we're offering both options, but
in a very limited quantity.
The real question was whether we got blue or green that we contemplated for a really long time. So at least we got some brown. Yes, because we talked about getting blue and green at one point and no brown at all. So we did a good thing.
But I'm also thinking now that I want the green. But this is like what I do in my life. In every decision I make it, think back for a second, and think it's wrong. But then I get over it. So
no, the blue was the right choice. I'm very confident about it. But someday I want an option for the teal. It's the best of both worlds. Mix them together.
So yeah. What about you?
I'm mad because I'm really stressed out right now for a number of reasons. And we've talked about it on past episodes. And when I'm stressed out, I just spend stupid money, I feel like. Like, I just buy the dumbest things. And most recently, I got influenced to buy this perfume that I've never heard of, never smelt. Nothing. I just let this girl tell me online that everyone tells her she smells good when she wears it.
What is it, Lex?
She said
Spit it out.
She said the word musky, and you know I was sold on that.
Hook, line, sinker, nail in the coffin. Lexi's purchase checking out?
I did do the diligence to scroll through the comments, and other people said yes. People tell me I smell good as well.
I don't trust anybody though about anything,
Dude,
to be
but
honest.
okay, it's not it was like 60 bucks. It wasn't like I was spent $100 on it or anything, but now it's taking forever to get to me. And I'm just so worried that I just bought this scent that I'm never going to want to smell like, that every day, like multiple times a day, I'm checking the shipping because I'm just overly anticipating its arrival to figure out if I made a big mistake or not. But
Where
that's
did where did you purchase it from?
it was a TikTok ad, but it wasn't from TikTok Shop. It was
Okay.
from, yeah,
Do they have a return policy?
I have no idea. I will figure that out once I
What
ship
kind
it.
of scent like what business is this?
I bet you've heard of it. It's like Salt and Stone or something. They have
Yes,
like
they have
deodorant
candles.
too. Yeah, candles, deodorant, like everything. So
Okay,
I
okay.
also spent another $20 on deodorant that has the same scent. And they have multiple scents. And I just trusted this girl that this random scent that I decided to choose was the best one. Um,
I've definitely done that before and it works out about I would say 60% of the time.
yeah, I'm really hoping because I could use a little positivity in my life right now, something going well for me. So,
A little
really
judge.
hoping, really hoping for this to work out. But that's just one of the dumb things that, like, I just feel like I should be more mindful of what I'm spending money on right now. And I'm the opposite and just buying the dumbest things, like a rubber spatula that costs $10 on
Oh, ooh.
Amazon.
The word spatula. What does that mean to you? Because me and my husband have this conversation in this fight all the
So
time.
a spatula is like what you use to flip eggs and pancakes. A rubber spatula is like what you use when you're baking to get like, to get the stuff out of the every drop out of the bowl and like mix.
Okay, I called that I don't know. I don't remember what I call that, but I know that I call a spatula like the flipper thing, and
Yeah,
he does
a
not call
spatula
it
is the
that.
flipper thing. And then I've always called the thing I referred to as a rubber spatula.
Yeah,
So
I don't
maybe
know.
this would be a good poll.
I call it like a baking thing. I don't know. Okay,
A
spatulas.
baking utensil. I love the word utensil.
And you know I hate it. It's too vague. I need specifics.
Like the word aesthetic.
Oh gosh. Am I rambling?
I don't know.
Let's get Emily.
Okay, let's get Emily on here. Look at you.
Hey.
Right before we talked about what we were mad about, we introduced Emily and gave you a little bit of her background. And here she is. Welcome to the podcast, Emily.
Hello. Thank you. Thanks for having me, ladies.
Yes, we're very
Yay.
excited. And we were just talking about what we were mad about. Do you have anything this week that you would like to add that you're mad about?
My sweet 10-year-old puppy, well, she's not a puppy, but my pit that I call a puppy, she had to have surgery and a tumor removed, and fingers crossed that it's not cancer, but she celebrated her 10th birthday wearing a cone. So I guess that's pretty upsetting, and I felt bad. That sucks.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I know.
Hopefully going into her 10th year cancer free.
Yes.
But I know I felt so bad for her in all
It
of
was
her
just
birthday posts.
the worst. But, we'll celebrate it in a couple of days fully when she's not, in this state. So we'll look
Yes.
forward to that. Celebrate the good stuff. But yeah, that was pretty bad.
Poor girl.
Mhm.
And poor you. I
I
feel like
know.
those situations, like the dog, like your dog's always going to be so resilient, but like,
Yeah.
are we? Like, are we okay?
For real. And no, the answer is no, I'm not okay.
Yeah, they're like knocked out for all of it. Meanwhile, we're crying at our houses, just anticipating the phone call to tell us to come pick them up.
I cleaned
have
my
it
entire
easy.
closet. Like I
Yeah.
went through everything to spend those 6 hours to clean it and just
Just
distract,
to
distract,
keep your
distract.
eyes. Yeah.
Oh my
Yep.
gosh.
Keep your
Is that
mind
how
off
you
of
like
things.
deal with stress? Are you like a cleaner? Just distractions in general?
All or nothing. So it's either I do absolutely nothing and just avoid, or I will like totally distract and do whatever I can to keep my mind off of like everything and anything. Yeah.
Mhm.
For
Yeah.
sure. Oh my gosh. Well, it sounds like she's doing well. So that's
Yes,
good.
she's doing
And,
good.
and
So that's good.
importantly, you are too.
Yes, it's behind us now. We can move on with our lives.
Everyone is doing much better today.
Yeah. Yep.
Good. Good. Well, let's
Awesome.
get started talking a little bit about why you're here. We thought that our message and your message is somewhat similar because we go through a lot of shit. And
Hmm.
at the end of the day, we focus on the positives of life and it's all worth it in the end. And we make light of it and have fun. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
um,
Absolutely.
I just want to introduce you and ask, like, how did you get started as a hairstylist and influencer? And was there a specific moment in particular that sparked this change or this passion?
I would say it was definitely well before like the influencer bubble even existed. It was like 2010, and I started to getting into more of like just YouTube and in general watching lifestyle vloggers and that stuff. And I stumbled upon two, they're still beauty influencers today, Candy Johnson and Nicole Guerrero. And they just sat down in front of the camera and posted videos of just like, hey, this is how I color my hair. And that kind of sparked my interest in the beauty side of things. But I was always creative and that kind of stuff. So I would say, like, really just diving into the YouTube side of things. I saw a contest then where a Sigma makeup brush company wanted people to submit their own tutorials for makeup at that time. And so I thought, if these girls can do it, I'll post something. And I actually ended up winning. So that was kind of a boost of confidence of like, oh, there could be something here. And then as time progressed through just posting YouTube videos and just sitting at home doing content tutorials and makeup and all that kind of stuff, I decided I don't want to sit at the corporate desk job anymore. So then I kind of had a few life events of travel and kind of that like, what's it all for mentality, to where I was like, I have to go and pursue the beauty industry. 2010, YouTube, that's kind of where it all began for me.
I actually met Emily around the time that she was going through all of these, thoughts of changing her
Yeah.
career. I remember coming in, I think, right after you won that contest,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone, all the mutual people that we knew were telling me to check out your YouTube page because I met them before I met you. And I was like, I
Yeah.
gotta meet this Emily girl.
Uh-huh.
My ex worked with her husband,
Mm-hmm.
and every work event we go to, Emily would do my hair and my makeup for it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I always looked 10 times better than I normally did every time she touched me. So I was like, yeah, you got talent. You got to go
Well,
back to school.
and shout out, Lexi. You were one of my few friends that actually came to me when I was in hair school. So props to you for trusting in me. That takes a lot because I wouldn't even let the girls in hair school touch my hair. So kudos to you. But yeah, there's a lot of great memories from that time. It was scary beyond belief, but I just had that moment. I was hiking in the Tetons and just had that moment of just like, there's bigger things in life than what I'm doing right now, and found a way to do it, I guess. So yeah, a lot of scary but fun memories to look back on during that time for sure.
That's badass to actually not only like think it because everybody has like their passion in the back of their mind, I think, but like
Mm-hmm.
very few people have the guts to actually like do something about it. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
in your job prior to that for how long? Like you had like a good cushion, a good solid job. Like
I was going to say,
Yeah.
she was
Yeah.
established and had like a career.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. I left at 9 years with a company straight out of college. So,
wow.
and I had a full time, a mortgage, bills to pay. I wasn't like the 18-year-old out of high school. My goal was to get back to school by the time I was 30, and I went back when I was 28. So
Oh,
definitely an experience to look back on for sure. But it took me several years. It took me probably 2 to 3 years to financially and mentally get to the point where I was like, I can actually do this. So yeah.
wow.
and I feel like it's important to bring it up early in the conversation because he's going to come up quite often, I think. But your husband, Eric, and you
Yes.
are the cutest, like couples goals for sure. And the way you guys support each other in all of your life decisions.
Absolutely.
Like he was like one of the major factors that was like pushing you to go for your dream, even though it was going to affect both of you financially. And
Yes, absolutely. Like he was willing to go down to one income, and where he works, they're amazing and allowed him, like we went down to even one car during that
Oh
time.
my gosh.
And so, yeah, we just did what we had to do and sacrificed a lot. But now here I am 8 years past when I left Medline. And it's kind of like, who knew that this was in front of me if I didn't take that leap? But also my husband, I can't say it enough. Like he's my number one. And you have to have support in your life to make those changes, and couldn't have done that honestly without him at all.
Yeah.
So yeah,
On our
definitely.
emo episode, we were talking about shows at the lift, and I did bring up how one of my friends met her
Yeah,
husband, and like I feel like you have to state how long you guys have been together because it is insane how much you guys still love each other
right.
after this many years.
Well, and being like the elder, the elder millennial, I call myself, it's like, it's unheard of. But yeah, 2005 is when we met, and we started dating right away and have been married for 11 years. So yeah, kind of wild to think that 19 years ago, some random dude offered me a pretzel at the busted lift, and that was it.
Yeah, in high school
I
sweethearts. That's like
know.
so rare nowadays.
Yes.
So
Yep. Yep. He's a good one.
yes.
So how you got into sharing your journey and your talent online was the contest. I never knew that. So that's very, very,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
interesting. Like your
Yeah.
first shot, you just won something. Like that's
I was like, we'll give it a go. Got some free stuff out of it. And it's just kind of nice it had like that little boost of confidence at the beginning. Like maybe there is something here. So yeah.
oh yeah, for sure. Imagine how many people entered that had done
Yeah.
stuff a million times. What has
Yeah,
been the most
exactly.
rewarding part of sharing your journey with other people online, especially with topics like self-love and authenticity?
Honestly, I would say like the human connection portion of it for me is huge. Like I was kind of a loner growing up, and just kind of that isolated feeling that I just sharing my journey online, or just in general authenticity and that kind of stuff. I just feel like sharing is caring. Like sharing that you're having a bad day. There's how many people on this planet? We all use social media now. So to have the ability to have that human connection, I think has just been kind of my guiding light for all of it, and like my driving force for why I even want to do it in general. And just like sharing our human experience, good or bad. Like I think it's just so important if we have access to social media, even from the YouTube days before Instagram and all that. People started vlogging and just sharing their day to day, and it was just super fascinating to know that we have a lot more in common than I think we all realize most of the time. So
And you and I have always related on this quite a bit too, and especially with your career now. But you are such an empath as well. Like you
yes,
can feel how people feel. And
yes,
so this I just feel like this just makes so much sense for you to take on that role of kind of sharing and trying to, connect people
yeah, yeah,
on the internet.
yeah,
And yeah, it just works
absolutely.
out so well for you.
And it's fun. So, I mean, best of both worlds for me. I enjoy doing it, and it has like a personal meaning to it for me. So it's
Yeah.
good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Lexi and I are new to this world, like brand
Yeah.
new. So we're just experiencing it for the first time. So I also was just like excited to like talk to you about that because it
Yeah.
is fucking cringy and feels so vulnerable to hit
Mhm.
post or to post our podcast and like just truly, I mean, you can just see everything we're doing and we don't edit that much either. So like
Yeah.
this is just
Yeah.
us and it is the
Mhm.
first couple times like I was sick to my stomach about like hitting post or
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh my God, I hated
Like
it.
who do I
It's
think I am that like people want to see
Exactly.
this or
that
Well,
part.
not only
Yes.
that, but we're still trying to figure out how much to share and what that borderline is of like what is too much, what do we keep to ourselves, what do
Yes.
people want to hear. It's just, yeah, like Maddie said, it's just nerve-wracking. I feel like there's no right way to do it, but
No.
you got
And
to
I
figure
feel
out
like,
how it works for you.
right. And we're our hardest critics, right? So
Yeah.
anything that we put out there, like hearing our own voice or seeing ourselves on camera, like it took me, I've put myself on YouTube since 2010, and I still in 2024 pause before I hit send and like think about it, where it's like I'm trying to get there, but yeah, that you're self-critical, but you slowly have to realize like there are people that are enjoying your message or your content or whatever you're putting out there. And even if it's one person, you might find the rest of your community there. But yeah, it's so cringe. It's uncomfortable beyond belief. It's
And
Even
you always have the haters, and it's
absolutely.
inevitable.
And even my husband, I've been with him since 2005. I still have moments where I will be, recording content in the living room and he comes home and I instantly like, I'm done. I'll finish this later when you're not here. And it's like,
Can't
even
do it in front of
the
you.
person I'm most comfortable with, I still
Yeah.
can't even. So I think there's just so many layers to it, but just trying to find a way to put it out there is all you can do really in the end.
Well, it's ballsy and it takes time, and so we admire you for
I
it.
don't know if I'm skipping ahead a little bit here,
You're fine.
but have you had situations where you've had negative comments or feedback on your content? And like, how did you handle it?
I'm the person that I just give so much love back to these people because I just know that it is coming from whatever's going on in their world. It took me a long time and a lot of work to get there. But even recently, this girl left a comment on one of my TikToks maybe last month and was like, "Oh, you're so pretty, but you should check out the eyebrow mapping like filter to better draw on your eyebrows or something." And I just gave her perspective of like, if you were to actually browse my TikTok, she would see that my eyebrows look different probably every day. And then on top of that, I struggle with mental illness. And this was the best I could do with my brows that day. And so I try and balance of like sending love your way or like that kind of just being surface level. But then there are times when people do maybe deserve a little bit of perspective. And so sometimes I will just give it to them, but I don't let it bother me. Even if you ask Eric, he'd be like, you do let it bother you sometimes. But for the most part, I try and just ignore it or send something positive back to them because
Yeah.
that's typically what helps.
Like a teaching moment type
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because how are they supposed to know what's wrong if someone doesn't tell them, right?
Exactly.
And it
Even
sounds
though
like
they
this girl
should.
was kind of coming from a place of like, hey, I'm trying to help you.
Yes. But it's also like, I didn't ask, girl.
Yeah.
So maybe just leave the comment of like, have a good day. But it's also
Mhm.
like, that was particularly a hard grief morning for me. But with my job, I choose to show up with hair and makeup no matter what. And so it was kind of one of those days where it was like, girl, if you only knew. But I had to just keep it moving, and
Mhm.
you just have to try and not care. We all care, but you have to just try and not care.
Yeah.
Yep. As Maggie would say, how you doing? Keep it moving.
Yes, exactly.
That is her thing.
Exactly.
It is.
And I might be stealing that one. Sorry, Maggie.
Yep. Go ahead. I steal everything from her. Everything that
Yes.
comes out of that mouth is
Yep.
gold. So. But yeah, a lot of your platform is based on fashion and beauty, and especially like body positivity
Mhm.
and being like wearing whatever the fuck you want,
Literally.
despite what you think others might think of what you look in it. Um, with that, how would you describe your personal style and where do you get your inspiration from for those fashion choices?
I would say first and foremost, like my sensory needs require discomfort. Like straight up, if I put something on and there's one little fiber or thread that's bothering me, it's gone. Like I don't care how cute I look. It's the sensory needs come first. So that's priority. But honestly, I like growing up, with music videos and that kind of era. That was when I was younger, a lot of where I would get my inspiration. But now that I'm older, obviously just everywhere. Just people in the entertainment industry, but also just wearing what I just vibe with and not really thinking more than that. And then Sammy Jeffcoat in particular, she's on Instagram and TikTok. She is heavily tattooed, but also has this like level of elegance to her. And I feel like she has this really good balance of like edgy, but not trashy. Like there's this connotation that if you have tattoos or piercings or wear long nails or etc., you could list everything off that you fit in a specific box. And her mantra that I've really adapted myself is wear what you want at the end of the day. And so I feel like if something I look at it and it brings me joy or makes me feel a type of way, I'm going to wear it as long as it doesn't bother me. But
Oh
that's
my
kind of where I
God.
came from. Yeah.
Let's talk about your tattoos because I love them. They're so cool. And I feel like you always have so much thought behind them. And I don't know. Do you have like a favorite one you can kind of like flash on, like
I would
describe it
say
and flash it for the
obviously
camera?
probably my most meaningful one would be my
Yeah.
bald eagle. Derek Anderson at Black Moon Tattoo did this in Madison, Wisconsin, and it represents my dad. So I would say that's probably my favorite. My lemons are my newest one. I just like those because they're pretty
I
and
love that.
colorful. But yeah, I I just think that was another way in regards to like body positivity and that kind of stuff, is that it allowed me to kind of take power back over my own body and, you know, kind of let people judge me forever they want, but this is what I want to do for myself. And so there's something to be said about tattoos being way more than just like an aesthetic. They can be very healing and empowering in the same sense.
And yours are also vibrant and
Yeah.
colorful, just like your personality.
Oh,
And
thanks,
you
girl.
even the way you choose your artists
Yeah.
and things like that. It's
And
just so thoughtful.
sunscreen. If you invest in tattoos, sunscreen. That's my
Yeah,
biggest thing. Yeah.
that makes sense. Maddie,
Yeah.
do you have a tattoo?
I have 0 tattoos. I want
Same,
one.
same.
You're like a
Me
unicorn
too.
these days.
I know.
Lexi
That's
doesn't
where
either.
I'm kind of at, where I'm like, I admire the shit out of them. I am like creative, so I think they're so cool and I do want one,
Mhm.
but I'm also just so indecisive.
Yeah.
I know once I pull the trigger, I'll just start going off and getting a bunch of them, but
The first
right
one's the
now none.
hardest. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you're like, fuck it, full send.
Yeah. What's it matter at this point?
Right?
I'll get a dick on my ankle now.
Yeah, I definitely want tattoos and I know I will get them. I know the right one will come and it'll happen at the right time, but I think it has to happen when like I'm traveling or I'm somewhere and it's just like it's a happen upon thing.
Okay, so back to fashion.
Yeah.
Which trends are you loving right now? I guess with beauty and fashion.
I am not one of those like trend girls. Like, honestly, I couldn't tell you half the trends that are going on right now. I would say what I love though is just like people leaning into just what they like. And I think that shows through in every way possible. Like, if you want to go and wear all the bows and whatever that trend is called and do that crap, like, cool, good for you. But like, I just love people fully like doing what they want. But I will say in like recent years, like just the trends of the body positivity of like, we grew up in the waif era of the 90s and the only people showing their bellies were, you know, size 00s, whereas now you're seeing larger people just wear what they want in that way. So that is probably just going to be, it's not really a trend, but something that I always love and support for sure.
I agree. Like seeing the resurgence of like Abercrombie and Fitch. We had an episode where we talked about like 2000s fashion, and I would go shopping out of town at Abercrombie when I was like a junior in high school or maybe a sophomore in high school. And I was the tiniest I'd ever been, and I was still an XL, and it fit me so tight. Like it just wasn't an option for me to shop there. And I was not, you know, like I was probably a size 7 or 8. And like I've never been a tiny person by any means. So yeah, to see it's given me so much confidence to see other people wear, like you said, a crop top, high-waisted jeans and a crop top, or just whatever works. And nobody gives a fuck anymore. And it's amazing.
One cares.
No one's looking at you.
And honestly, I'm jealous that this wasn't our era of when we were like 12 to 14, because I look at some of these younger girls. I forget there's one girl that's kind of, she's recently been on Sports Illustrated and that stuff. And she's a bigger girl and she is a model doing what me as like a little 10-year-old wanted to be, but I was a bigger girl, so I couldn't. So I love that stuff. I think it's great. And just who cares? Who cares anymore? Like who cares?
And even fashion in general, like style has widened so broadly too, where there's not this one style like there was at Abercrombie. Like it's not a polo and a skirt or whatever. There are some hints of like patterns and things like that, but it's kind of like use this pattern in whatever way you'd like, or put a bow on your shirt or on your hair, or you know.
Exactly.
So I think what's coming in more is like being yourself and being authentic, because all of these trends have already been done.
Exactly.
And uniqueness is what's going to set you apart.
Absolutely.
Any that you don't like at all right now.
Beauty, it's kind of just like people that are trying too hard to like hit this standard of beauty that is just not acceptable. And that just bothers me that we still have that idea in our head that like the Kardashians don't use filters, when it's like we all know damn well that anyone on the internet, not me though, I do not use filters, but I think just that overdone stuff where you're trying to hide something instead of just showing who you are just really bothers me.
I think we talked about this before, Emily, that like I just don't look good with filters. my friends will throw a Snapchat filter on and we'll go to take a picture and somehow I end up looking like a chipmunk with like
Yeah.
these babies. I don't know why they do not work for
And then
me.
other people, I'm like, shit, that's not your real face. You had me fooled, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or when someone like
Exactly.
uploads a picture of you online and it's obviously like very edited and you're like, okay, that is not me. Do not
Yeah.
Like, can you just
Yeah.
crop me out at this
Yeah.
point?
Like you don't want to put
Mhm.
photo with me apparently because that is not
Yeah,
me.
just take me out. I'm fine with that. Yep.
Okay, Emily. So obviously, self-love and gratitude is a huge part of what you promote. What practices or like habits help you stay grounded in these values?
Meditation is like a big thing for me because it just kind of clears the mud. And I think we're all just so busy that that's the one thing that even if I sit down for like 3 minutes and set a timer and just close my eyes and do some breath work, like it just grounds me back to like, hey, whatever's going on and swirling around, like just bring it back to there and just know that like that's all that matters in that moment is I'm here and I'm breathing. And that's something to be grateful for. And then gratitude, I started this practice when, I couldn't get out of bed and would just go, what are 3 things that I can be grateful for? And it kind of trickled into now every day when my alarm goes off, I turn my alarm off and I close my eyes before I even get out of bed. And I just say 3 simple things. And usually it's my warm house, I woke up today, my amazing husband, my dog, whatever those 3 things are. And it just sets that tone to go back to the basics. And once I started implementing that every day, my life literally changed and it just changed for the better. And I think those are some like really basic things that people can attempt to do without feeling like they have to start with this major thing of a gratitude journal or, these mirror work affirmations that you're doing and all this stuff.
It sounds like such simple things to do, but yeah, it still takes dedication because you
Yes.
have to take the time and you have to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people just they don't take the time.
Right.
Which
Well,
I, for one, am one of those people. I
right.
just
And I go in and out of it where I've been out of practice for a while and then recently went to a reading and she flat out was like, you need to get back into your meditation. That's your guiding driving force in your life of figuring your shit out. That's where it all happens. And I
Mhm.
think people want to complicate things. And when you're in a phase of your life where you can't, find the good, starting with the most basic things is sometimes even hard to do that. So I think really reminding yourself of just the very bare minimum is what's important and helps on those days where you really need it. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing? Like I remember the first couple times that I meditated and you have to kind of like be in a weird bad place to start it, right? Like it's
Yes.
not going to happen because everything's great and I want to go do
Everything's
meditation
great.
now. Like
Yes.
that's not what happens. And I think people
Yeah.
want it to happen that way, but it will
Yes.
happen for you and you'll find it when you need it, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that people want it to be this like cutesy fun thing and it's not.
I got away from it for many years. And then when my dad got his cancer diagnosis, it was like right back into it of like, this is what I need. And that's a requirement of survival at that point. And now it's something, like you said, I had a really bad moment in life that forced me to rely on it. And now I can just use it as a tool to stay in a good place then. And it's amazing. I encourage everyone to try meditating.
Exactly. I want to ask you a little bit about, you mentioned you had a reading, but I do want to give like a trigger warning quick to people. We are going to talk about
Mhm.
readings and we're also going to talk about grief and personal loss. So if it is a sensitive topic for you, feel free to skip ahead,
Yeah.
but we're going to kind of go into that now. So
Yeah. Emily, you already kind of mentioned your dad, and I think it's okay to say that you like did go through a little dark period of
Oh,
time. I mean,
oh
who
yeah.
wouldn't in that situation? So
Right.
Emily mentioned her dad had cancer, and
Mhm.
how much time did you have like with him since he got diagnosed?
So it would have been springtime of 2021. And then pancreatic cancer is essentially a death wish of like how soon, there are people
Mhm.
that have months and there are people who have a couple of years. So we got, until July of 2022 and it shifted everything in my life, obviously, but it was something that as you're going through it, you have no idea what, is working, what's not. Your whole family's going through it too. There's just so many things to navigate. And I think cancer in itself is such a unique experience compared to other loss and that kind of stuff, because there's so much anticipatory grief of like, it's going to happen, but when? And so I think finding those ways to just bring you back to like, just focus on right now. You don't even think about a year from now, focus on right here and right now. And that's kind of what I reminded myself of, like, there's no point of wondering about the what ifs. You still do it, but it's very much like, what can I just do right now to have a good day and be supportive of my family? But yeah, it was a blur of 2 years, less than 2 years. And now I feel like 2 years later, I'm still kind of figuring out where I land, but yeah, not a journey anyone wants to go on, that's for sure.
No, but you fucking did it. Like
Yeah.
I mean, just watching you navigate it and figure it out, there's probably times where you're like, am I ever going to be the same?
Right. Oh,
And
yeah.
you just like even leveled up after going through something so deep in like the strangest way.
It's kind of weird to explain what that's like to people, because you see rock bottom, but then I think the beauty in that is you see it and you move on from it if you can, which I'm grateful for. But yeah, you can still make a beautiful life, and that's the most important thing. And I think for me, it's using it to thrive and flourish now is my goal.
But takes a lot of time, I'm sure. And
Yes.
Yeah.
you said, when you go through hard times or when you're anxious, like you like to control things or distract.
Oh, yeah.
And so this situation probably really made you sit with it, but it felt like you chose to sit with it. I've heard in grief, like, you don't want that time to pass too quickly because you want to be as close to that time. Do you get what I'm saying? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I would say that for me, I like grief and losing people in my life. I'm familiar with it. I lost grandparents at a young age, friends at a young age, a parent completely different, obviously, way harder. But it's that, I don't know, it was just intuitively, Lexi already said, I'm an empath. I would say that I do have like this intuitive side of me, that there was just like that internal conversation where I was just like, if you don't face it head on and navigate it right now, real time, it's going to bubble up later eventually, and it's going to be disastrous. Like, I just know how I handle things, how I cope with things, anything that I have just like kind of pushed underneath, it shows up eventually. And so I think the cool thing for me was I navigated that journey of like trying to support my dad during that process, but also picture the future version of me after him. And I think trying to see that I would be okay and remind myself that is, amazing. But also I've had things that have happened that have kind of given me those signs of like, hey, you're going to be okay since then. So I think it's just like realizing that it's all happening real time and you can't push it away. You have to just let those things come through and navigate it as best you can, obviously.
And on the bright side, you still talk to your dad sometimes,
yes.
which I think is so interesting and so cool. And I was really excited to talk about that today. But that was one of the things that you've adopted since that as well. So can we talk through, I think the first time you did it with your mom and your sister too, right?
Yeah. Last November we went, and it was a really good experience. It's just kind of that confirmation of like, at least my own personal belief is that we leave the physical form, but energy is energy and it doesn't go anywhere. And I was actually in the room with my dad for his last moments. And I think I didn't have that moment where I like looked around and was like, oh, where'd he go? It was just this transition and we were just there. And so now going to these readings, I just went to a second one, just myself. And to me, there's just no way she can just be pulling this out of nowhere. The specifics that she gets into are just too specific to where I can sense that, if I feel like I'm talking to my dad, she's for sure talking to him. You know what I mean?
Yes. Is she like would she call herself like a medium or a tarot or what?
So she will sit you down and be like, I'm not a psychic. If I was a psychic, I would have already predicted millions and not be living here. So she's like, I am just a communicator with your loved ones. And even this last time I sat down and she's like, this isn't my thing, but I'm seeing you have not a relative, but you have a spirit guide here. And she's like, I'm not usually into that. I usually only talk to like your actual loved ones who have crossed over. But she's like, you've got somebody here also who is like traveling all these lifetimes with you. So I was like, okay, that's cool. But
What?
she had no information. I'm like, I got to find somebody else who knows about spirit guides now. But yeah, she can essentially just like feel energy and be able to kind of like translate it from her mind's eye and pass it on to us. And it's incredible.
It is. I just
That's
actually
so
had my
cool.
first tarot reading this last weekend.
Ooh, that's exciting.
I was watching Maddie the whole time you were talking, and she was like, she was like so giddy because
I never
she said
understood.
these same exact things last night to me when we were on the phone. She's like, "There's no way she's just making this up. Like, you can't just make this
Because
up."
you couldn't
No.
have read me 6 months ago and said the same thing that you said right now.
Right.
So
I mean,
it's
yeah,
crazy.
exactly. She described a photo of my dad from 1983 to a T. Like
there's this photo I'm seeing of, and she described
no,
the photo.
she was like, do you want to know how your dad is presenting himself to you?
That's is that his
To me.
favorite version of himself too? Like,
That's essentially that's what
That's
she
so
said.
cute.
Oh yeah.
I
And
love that.
essentially she said like spirits typically pick like a time in their life that they had most joy. And so this would have been before my parents got married or anything like that. But he described like knee-high tube socks, really short shorts. He had longer hair like a mullet. And as she's describing it to me, I'm like, I know exactly what. And as soon as I told my mom, she knew exactly what photo. So it's like, there's no way she could make this up.
Yeah,
It's unbelievable
that's
to
so
me.
cool.
And I know that I can communicate with my dad in my own way. So if she has these gifts, then I fully believe it. It's awesome.
yes,
Yeah.
like when you feel that if you're asking a question, you get an answer in your head, like that's real, right? Like you
Yes.
feel that because I do too.
Yes.
So okay.
Yes. Or like the bald eagle story. I'm not religious or anything, but this was like that thing that stopped me like in my tracks and was like, maybe there is something here. Is that my dad's favorite animal, bald eagle. He was a huge advocate and he knew he was going to pass away. So we didn't realize he did this, but he had a box of photos of himself that he had already like kind of consolidated together for us and put a note on a post-it note for my mom. And it was really sweet when we started. The bald eagle was there. As soon as we found the box from my dad with the note, the bald eagle just flew away. And then later that week when we buried him, we drove through that same area, pouring down rain. There's a bald eagle there. It's
Wow.
not there on any other day except for like holidays, or my mom recently fell and broke her shoulder. It was there the next day. And in these readings, she's confirmed that that's my dad, you know? So it's
Wow.
just these things where it's like my whole entire family, like when we got to the gravesite, was like, did you see the bald eagle? Like my aunts and uncles, everyone, no one said, oh, is that your dad? Everyone was just like, holy shit, that's your dad. And honestly, you just have to believe whatever sign you want to believe. That's yours to believe, you know? Yeah.
That's a amazing story. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I
It's really
love
cool.
that.
Like,
Yeah.
It
like,
makes me
they
think
found
of
the
this
photo.
one.
I'm good. Like they got him. I did my job.
Yeah.
Yep. Like I did
I
my
love
one
that
thing
he
to
flew
help
away
out.
afterwards. He's like, I'm not gonna watch them look at my photos though.
I'm out.
I got bigger fish
right
to fry
after-
now.
Exactly.
Right after my grandma passed away, there's this like red cardinal that always showed up at my house, and I chose to believe that was my grandma. And then on day 3, I went, this is morbid, guys.
Oh,
I went
no.
out into my backyard and it had drowned in my kiddie pool.
No.
And so I was like, nope, that wasn't her.
No.
That wasn't her. That was
I think, is it Mark
like, this is
Maron?
what you get for believing in something.
Well, I think Mark Maron, the comedian, has like a Netflix special where he talks about that, where he's like, oh, my cardinal, that's my girlfriend. And then the next day, like more cardinal shows up and he's like, did she bring a friend? Or like, you know, it's like, I don't know.
That's funny.
I love the idea of it though.
Yeah.
I don't think my grandma would come back as a bird anyways, but I was just like, oh,
Well,
that
and that's
means
where,
something.
yeah. Well, and I like with going to these like readings, even she was like, you know, if your dad's got a sign, ask loved ones now while they're here, like, what would you show up as afterwards? So I don't have to play the guessing game. So I've already even asked my mom, like, what are you going to show up as? She's like, I don't know. You know, I don't want to talk about it. But I'm like, well, tell me. So then I don't have to be like that of like, oh no, did my mom drown as a cardinal bird and my bird feeder?
But
Oh.
I love how your dad's sense of humor comes through in them. He plays some
Yes.
tricks on you, it sounds like.
Yeah, just even what was today's Thursday, Tuesday of this week, he flipped my blow dryer, which would be now he has done that once a month. And Mariah had even confirmed that he flips my blow dryer because the last reading, I was like, oh, is dad at the salon? She's like, oh, yeah, all the time. And 3 times. And I was like, 3 times what? She's like, he messed with your electrical 3 times. So
That's before you even asked anything.
I did not tell her, and she told
Yeah.
me, and I started putting them in my phone because I reminded myself after my last reading of like, she mentioned he visits me at the salon, but just says he messes with the electrical. And so when this blow dryer thing started happening, I'm on my own fuse. Like, it's not just the plug-in area. I have to walk to the back of the salon and actually go to the breaker box and flip it. And it's something she confirmed without me like mentioning it. I just asked if he visits me, and she's like, "Oh yeah," and he flips the blow dryer, and I was just like,
I love it.
"I don't have time for that, Dad. I'm busy."
Isn't that so cool
Like,
though? Like,
Dad.
does that
Mhm.
does that give you comfort now? Like knowing that he's like probably whatever in another realm, but
Yes.
a dimension
Yeah.
or
Yes. Yeah. And I think for me, I didn't have a great relationship with my dad when he was here, and I actually, people won't understand it, but I have a better relationship with him now. We're closer than we've ever been before, but it's because of me being able to just see him for who he was. And I think we all have perspective, right? Like, I can have the perspective of now looking back on my dad's life and be like, oh, this is why he was the way he was. And just, I think that's part of the whole grief journey, is navigating those ever changing emotions. But I just really, I lean into the fact that how cool it is that, like, even if people think I'm some weirdo talking about a bald eagle all the time, but it's like, that's what resonates with me and makes me feel connected. And that's important. So I don't really care, you know?
What you just said is something that I heard pretty recently, and I got teary-eyed thinking about it, because they said when someone passes, like, you can use that time to better your relationship with them, and it just changes into something different. And it is, I didn't understand it, and now I do. And
Yes.
so if you have lost someone recently and you're looking for a way to connect, like, I highly recommend just thinking about that. And that is, it's amazing. And I don't know how to describe it other than if you have, unless you're in the unfortunate opportunity to explore that, right?
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
I totally agree. Absolutely. It gives me so much comfort. Or like a song will come on as soon as I turn on my radio and I'll think of somebody. And this medium has even said, like, if those thoughts pop into your head, just believe it, you know? Yeah.
Well, she kind of told you that she sensed some sort of gift with you too, right?
Yes.
Like that you have some sort of capabilities when it comes to that, right?
Yeah. Like I can see like vague, like shadows. And she said, essentially, if I wanted to actually see, you know, spirit, that I just would really need to continue working on that gift. Or like she told me with my spirit guide that I need to learn his name. I need to remember his name because we've lived multiple lives together as like lovers, brothers, siblings, all that kind of stuff. Essentially, he's like a 6'4" Scottish guy that I need to learn his name.
Damn, girl.
Literally,
Damn, I
she was
gotta
like,
know how you know him.
well, and she was like, girl, he's good looking. And I was like, okay, I'll take that. But I have to meditate and figure out his name. So I'm assuming that like meditation is another way, going back to what we were talking about earlier, not only connecting with yourself, but connection with spirit. And there are times when I've been meditating and like a thought about my dad will pop in. And I now turn that and recognize that's my dad actually communicating to me, not just me thinking of my dad. Because she even said, like, he knows I'm a scaredy cat sometimes, so he doesn't want to mess with the electrical. So she said if I ever kind of squint and see like a magenta, blue, purple aura, that's my dad trying to communicate with me through my vision. So the mind's eye, all that stuff. I don't know, it's all our own beliefs, but it's like we don't really know what is fully out here, even in our reality. So
No, it's crazy.
I like to have fun with it, you know?
I love pondering in these things. I get really scared and really anxious, but like I go there and I love it.
Oh yeah, it's fun.
I need you to work on your gifts so you can see your spirit guide, because what if he's like a Eric doppelganger?
I know.
And he's just like your soulmate in every life. And
I know. But he just happens to be a little
he's
bit
really
taller.
Scottish though.
Exactly.
That is cool.
I love it.
She's like, oh, I was like, who's there? Okay. All
She's
right.
like, he's
I don't wanna
fine,
get off.
fine.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
fine.
literally, she's like, I want him as mine. I was like, okay.
All mediums and like intuitive people, I don't think they all, I mean, they all say the same thing. And so nobody could just come up with this if it wasn't consistent, right? It's
Right.
consistent. And that's what's insane.
Right.
That's what's crazy.
Well, and I feel like we all have intuition. And I'm like a big believer of like those imaginary friends that we have as kids, like are maybe actually us seeing spirit, but we're told by society that that's just an imaginary friend. So this veil is like, you know, it's not there anymore. Whereas like I even know young little kids where they're talking to like loved ones that I know, and I'm like, they've never even met that person. So how could their imaginary friend have the same name? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Well,
I just think,
JC must be very gifted. We had her on the podcast last week, so by now everyone will have heard it.
fun.
Now she has a ghost named Tina that she says she just watches over me. She's just here, but she likes to. Every time she farts, she'll turn around and be like, "Tina."
You know, maybe Tina's her spirit guide and
Maybe Tina is her spirit.
encouraging
I hope,
the
I hope she's just like Tina from Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, like her spirit guide would not have any other name other than Tina.
Tina.
Literally that checks
so
out for sure.
Thanks for sharing all
yeah.
that. You know, it's not
Yeah.
extremely easy to share, but you have consistently shared your grief online, which I think is so important. I feel like not everyone wants to highlight that part of life, and it's so important that we do, because every single person is going through that at some point or another.
Literally. And I think that's why I've always tried to like just make people feel included on things. And I think when I started sharing about grief, it was just because I was like, if I'm going through this, I'm not the only one. And I definitely lost followers, quite a few at the beginning, because they're like, oh, here's this sad bitch again, you know, whatever. But I just reminded myself, these are just people that are totally not comfortable with talking about that. And that's fine. They'll get there. And they just haven't had something in their life that has forced them to. But I just feel like sharing that is so important. And the amount of messages that I get from people that are just like, thank you so much. It makes it worth it. Even though I send it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so uncomfortable. I can't believe I just shared that. But what I get in return is so worth it.
That's amazing. What you're doing is super, super important. And like our family's going through like our first grief. And so to see how everybody's reacting to that is really, everybody's completely different.
Yes.
Timing, ways that they are processing, grieving. And so I'm just going through that for my first time too. So I enjoy your content too. And I think it's really helpful. And again, it's super important. So
thank you. Appreciate that.
Is there a misconception about grief that you'd like to clear up?
I would say that it gets easier. And I don't say that to like scare people, because I don't want them to think like, oh my gosh, if I go through like a really sad or grief moment in my life, it's not going to get easier. I think it's more of the reality of the misconception that like you just suddenly wake up one day and you're like, oh, that's just behind me now, it's fine. Where it's like you more like find ways to navigate it and find tools to have the good days even on the bad days, and just that you have to figure out a way to do it on your own. And that at the end of the day, like I had moments of my grief where I just wanted somebody else to navigate it for me, and that's just not possible. And I think it's this idea that just time goes on and time heals all wounds. And that's the most bullshit saying ever, because it's not true. You just find ways to navigate it and make it easier in your own way. But you still have those things that will bring you right back to that moment that started it all. And the body keeps the score. And so I just feel like this idea that, 20 years could pass and that pain wouldn't feel the same, that's just not true. It's, it's always going to be that way, unfortunately. But
have you read that book?
Yeah.
I have not.
Yes, it's one that I need to go back and read it, because dummy me was literally reading that book during my dad's cancer diagnosis. So here I'm like, let's just uncover all the trauma and just dive right into it. And whoa, it's a big one. It's one that you almost like need to take notes as you go along. But I feel like it's such a important book for people who are even just into psychology or that kind of stuff, because it's kind of that idea of like one person can drown in a half inch of water and another person could be thriving and not drowning in the ocean, and that it's all relative based on your own life experience. But that book, oh, that's a game changer. Yeah.
The Body Keeps Score, right?
Yep. The Body Keeps the Score.
I think I have it on my list to read, but I haven't yet. But
well, and it's true, because even recently when my mom broke her shoulder, we were back at the same ER where my dad had passed away, and my sister, we were just like, ooh, why did, and it's like, you can't psychologically make the connection, but your body is reliving it all over again. And so my brain just took me back to that book of like, yeah, this is what I was told would happen in that book. It keeps the score. Yeah.
Wow. I think we're really lucky to live in this time where people are more open talking about mental health, but also like institutions and the system itself are including mental health. And these books are coming out like past generations, like your dad's or my parents, my grandparents, they weren't able to have these resources that we have. So we're very, very lucky to be in this time and place.
Absolutely.
So it'll be cool to see how it keeps going.
Oh my God. The future generations, I have so much hope of like street smarts. I'm a little worried.
Oh my God. Yeah, for sure.
A little bit. But emotional maturity and ability to recognize your own trauma entering the room, they will have that down pat, because I just feel like talking like these I even told you guys when you asked me to do this, I was like, this is such an important topic that no one wants to have, but it's so important. And I just think it's continuing to trickle down. Like my dad lost his own dad around my age. He didn't have anybody to help him, no resources. If he wanted to, he would have had to go to the library or a therapist. Who's going to actually do that? And so now you can just go on your phone and find all these resources, or, go to the library, rent a book, all this stuff.
And the library did not have books that existed like this because the science wasn't there and the conversations weren't there either.
Exactly. Yeah.
So do you, I feel you like saying, like, you're like, oh, that's part of the thing that you feel bad about. Like your dad having to deal with.
Yeah. And that's like that perspective of like, I saw a photo of him holding me when I was like only a couple months old and my older siblings. And I just thought, oh my gosh, here he is. Like I could just let go of all the BS of like any pain that I had towards him or ill will or any of that stuff, because I was like, this is a 30-something-year-old man who lost his dad raising 3 kids. And all of a sudden it was like, I can give a little leeway on a lot of your mistakes. That doesn't make it okay for the things that you did or could have done better. But that perspective of like, wow, to be in that generation, especially as a farmer where you had this like masculinity, requirement and all, you didn't show emotions. Like, it's just so different now. And I'm grateful beyond for that. But perspective is everything too. Yeah.
You get to this like stage in your life where you start looking at your parents as people instead of your parents.
Yes.
And then that's when it all clicks. And unfortunately that happens sometimes after they're gone too. But it's just so crazy to put yourself in their shoes. And I mean, my mom lost both of her parents by the time she was 26 to cancer. Gosh. Yeah, you would never guess it from talking to her. Like you would never guess. And so it just makes you look at them completely different. And maybe give them a little more grace than you did when you were growing up.
Exactly.
And I think that is life-changing. You're right.
What's the new thing that people say, like, my mom's just a girl? Or there's like bumper stickers that say, don't honk at me. I'm just a girl. Like, I'm just a girl. Like your mom's just a girl doing life for the first time. And you put them on this pedestal of somebody.
Yeah. I saw a video this summer around like the 4th of July, and it was the mom was watching the fireworks and the daughter had captured the video and just said, just a reminder, they're living for the first time too. And I was even like, oh my gosh, that's so impactful.
When my grandma was passing, I took this picture off of the wall in the bathroom before she even passed.
Amazing.
And I was like, I need to make sure that I get this. And it says, we are all the same age inside. And it's like an older lady looking into a mirror and her face is really young in the mirror. And it says, we are always the same age inside. And it's like one of my favorite things. So I think about it all the time. And that's so true. I think every year gets better. So I will always be the next. The next.
Yes. I hear you
Well, I
there.
can say this is my favorite version of myself.
I
So
love that.
I'd
That's
have to
great.
agree.
Yeah.
It's only going to get better, girls. Cheers to
Hell
that.
yeah.
Yeah. Cheers to
Exactly.
that.
Yep.
Cheers to your water, Emily.
Yeah, cheers. Hydration. You know, we're getting old, so
I should be doing that. Mind, body, and soul. What are you talking
yeah.
about?
What legacy or what message do you hope to leave behind for people?
I think honestly, just to be okay with not being okay and loving yourself. I think like legacy is such a different thing for different people. And for me, it's like other people are like, oh, I want this big house and all this money to leave people. Like I'm a child free by choice girly. So when I am gone off this planet, I will probably have nieces and nephews that will get all my crap. And so I don't care about the physical stuff. I hope when people like think of me, they just think of positivity and just sunshine and love. And I think that just trying to always make people feel that is just what I strive to do no matter what. And that would be my main thing, is just leaving a legacy of like leading with love and trying to find your own happiness, whatever that means, and taking care of yourself. I always say, take care of yourself however you see fit. Just reiterating to people that whatever works for you is what works for you. And that's what matters.
What's next for you? Any exciting projects or collabs or anything coming up that we should know about?
Honestly, just like trying to do the damn thing. I made my first $8 off TikTok the other day. So I was like, holla.
Yeah.
I've only been doing this since 2010. So honestly, just like trying to find my way online with my social media presence. I feel like I'm finally getting out of my own way with that. I've just, like what we talked at the beginning of this, of just post the content, record it and hit send and just walk away and just not care. So just continuing to do that and develop just more of my spirituality. I think that's my biggest thing, but also sharing that journey with people online and just working on myself. That's a continued everyday thing.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of,
Yeah.
where can our listeners follow you at?
Oh, good old Instagram, MLE Martens. And then TikTok is Emily Martens, my name spelled out _ at the end.
And we'll link it in the podcast as well as on our Instagram too, so that people can find you. And again, I thanks so much for coming and sharing and being vulnerable. We know how hard it is, but I don't think everyone watching usually does. So
I
I think this episode is so different for us. And so I've been looking forward to having you on since Maddie and I started. Emily was one of the people to be like, hell yeah, you guys would be awesome. And from the start, I was like, you're going to be a guest someday. So I'm so happy it finally happened.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, just talking to you just like makes us like feel like, again, there's meaning to this. Like it makes you feel good about having these conversations and sharing that, knowing that other people are having the same thoughts and feelings. So
yeah,
thank you so
much. Even as simple as how hard social media is.
Yeah, right.
There's a small chance that someone's having a bad day and we just get their mind off of things for a split second. And that's really cool to think about.
Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure to follow us for new episodes on Wednesday on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Yep. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Wait You're Mad.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.